Welcome to a peaceful journey through time, to the Venice that existed long before the cruise ships and crowded squares. A city of immense power, breathtaking beauty, and secrets whispered through its silent canals. Tonight, let the story of the Venetian Republic carry you gently into restful sleep as we explore the empire that was built on water and ambition. For over 1,000 years, Venice was not a museum or a tourist destination, but a living, breathing superpower. The most serene republic commanded fleets that ruled the Mediterranean, merchant princes who controlled the spice trade, and artisans who created beauty beyond imagination. We'll wander through the arsenal where ships were built in a day, drift along canals where black gondolas carried nobles to secret meetings, and stand in the shadows of marble palaces that once housed unimaginable wealth. This bedtime story is designed for deep relaxation and natural sleep. Let the soft narration and rich historical imagery transport you to Renaissance Venice, where every stone tells a story and the lagoon waters reflect centuries of glory. You don't need to hear every word, simply allow yourself to drift as the tale unfolds, like a gondola floating on moonlit water. Perfect for sleep, stress relief, insomnia, or simply unwinding. Whether you love history or seek only peaceful rest, let the forgotten splendor of Venice guide you into dreams. No modern chaos, no tourist crowds, just the timeless beauty of La Serenissima as it once was. Settle deeply into comfort, close your eyes, and prepare to discover the Venice that time forgot. Sleep well, dear listener, and let the city built on water embrace you in its ancient tranquility. Scribd. Opening, the city on water awaits. Hello and welcome back to this quiet place we share, this refuge from the noise of the modern world. I'm truly grateful you've chosen to spend this evening here, allowing me to guide you on another journey through history's most fascinating corners. Tonight, we travel to Venice, but not the Venice you may have seen in photographs, crowded with tourists and cruise ships. Tonight, we visit the Venice that existed before, the Venice of power and mystery, of merchant princes and painted palaces, of secrets and splendor. Before we embark on this voyage through time, I invite you to make yourself completely comfortable. Adjust your position until everything feels just right, your pillows supporting your head perfectly, your blankets arranged to your exact preference, your body sinking into the softness beneath you. Take a slow, deep breath in through your nose, filling your lungs completely, and then release it gently through your mouth, letting all the tension of the day flow out with it. Again, breathing in calm, breathing out worry. And once more, feeling your shoulders dropping, your jaw relaxing, your entire being preparing for rest. Tonight's story is about a city that should never have existed. A city built on mud and water, on a foundation that seemed impossible. A city without land, without natural resources, without even fresh water of its own. And yet, for more than a millennium, this impossible city was one of the wealthiest and most powerful states in the entire world. The Republic of Venice, La Serenissima, the most serene, was an empire built on ingenuity, on maritime skill, on the cunning of merchants and the strength of shipbuilders. As I tell you this story, please remember that you need not stay awake for every word. You need not remember dates or names or facts. This is simply a tale, told in a gentle voice, meant to accompany you as you drift naturally towards sleep. If you find yourself slipping away before the story ends, that is exactly as it should be. Venice will remain here, waiting in these words whenever you wish to return. So let us begin. Close your eyes now if they are not already closed, and let me paint for you a picture of a lagoon at dawn. The water is perfectly still, like glass, reflecting the pale pink and gold of the sky. Mist rises from the surface in soft tendrils, creating an atmosphere of mystery and magic. In the distance, through the mist, you can see the silhouettes of buildings, not ordinary buildings, but palaces of marble and stone, their reflections shimmering in the water below. This is the Venice of 500 years ago, before the modern world changed everything. This is the city at the height of its power, when its fleets controlled the Mediterranean and its merchants held the keys to the riches of the East. Let us walk together now through its silent streets, or rather, let us glide through its waterways and discover what this extraordinary place was truly like. Chapter 1: Born from Refuge, Forged by Water. Our story begins not with glory, but with fear. In the dying days of the Roman Empire, as barbarian armies swept across the Italian peninsula, the people of the coastal region known as Venetia faced a terrible choice. They could stay in their cities and towns on the mainland and face almost certain death or enslavement, or they could flee to a place where no army could follow, the desolate, forbidding lagoon that stretched along the northern Adriatic coast. Imagine yourself as one of these refugees, perhaps in the year 450 or 460 AD. You have lived your entire life in a comfortable Roman villa, surrounded by olive groves and vineyards. But now, word has reached your town that Attila and his Huns are coming, burning everything in their path. You gather what few possessions you can carry, some coins, a bit of jewelry, a warm cloak, and you join the desperate crowds fleeing toward the coast. When you reach the edge of the lagoon, your heart sinks. This is your refuge. There is no solid ground here, only a maze of shallow channels and mudflats dotted with tiny islands barely rising above the waterline. The wind blows constantly across the open water, bringing with it the sharp smell of salt and decay. Birds wheel overhead, crying mournfully. This place seems more like a punishment than a sanctuary. But there is no choice. You and your family climb into a small boat with others from your town. A local fisherman, someone who knows these treacherous waters, guides you through the channels. The boat moves slowly, carefully, avoiding sandbars that lurk just beneath the surface. After what seems like hours, you reach one of the larger islands, though large is relative. It is perhaps 2 or 3 acres of marshy ground, already crowded with other refugees. Here you must make a new life. But how does one build on mud? How does one create permanence in a place where the very ground shifts with the tides? The early Venetians, your ancestors in this story, developed a solution born of necessity and ingenuity. First, they harvested trees from the mainland forests while they still could, oak, larch, pine, and cut them into long, straight poles. These poles, sharpened to points, were driven deep into the mud. One after another, hundreds upon hundreds of them, creating what amounted to an underwater forest. The poles were pounded down through the soft sediment until they reached a layer of hard, compressed clay beneath, a process that required enormous labor and patience. Once this forest of wooden pilings was in place, thick platforms of timber were laid across the tops, creating a stable surface. Only then could construction of actual buildings begin, using brick and stone carried in by boat from the mainland. Every structure in Venice, every house, every church, every palace, rests on this hidden foundation of wood driven into mud. It is a city literally built on an upside-down forest, preserved for centuries by the salt water that prevents the wood from rotting. As you lie in your bed tonight, imagine the sound of those wooden pilings being driven into the mud, a rhythmic hammering that echoes across the lagoon. Imagine the determination of those early settlers, refusing to give up, finding a way to create something permanent in the most impermanent of places. Feel that same determination flowing through you now, a quiet strength that allows you to let go of the day's worries and find rest in this moment. The refugees who fled to the lagoon did not intend to stay forever. They expected to return to their homes once the danger passed, but the danger never truly passed. The Western Roman Empire collapsed completely. The Italian mainland became a battlefield for competing barbarian kingdoms, and slowly, gradually, the people of the lagoon realized that these muddy islands were no longer a temporary refuge. They were home. Over the decades and centuries that followed, the scattered settlements began to coalesce. Families formed alliances. Small islands were connected by bridges. Leadership structures emerged. And by the 8th century, these communities had unified enough to elect their first doge, their leader, and to claim a new identity. They were no longer refugees from the mainland. They were Venetians, a new people forged by the sea. Let your breathing slow now, becoming as rhythmic and steady as the tides that flow through the Venetian lagoon. Feel yourself sinking deeper into rest, like those ancient pilings sinking into the mud, finding stability and support in the yielding softness beneath you. Chapter 2: The Republic of Merchants. The early Venetians quickly understood that their survival depended entirely on one thing: trade. They had no farmland to grow crops, no forests to harvest timber, no mines to extract metals. Everything they needed had to come from somewhere else, which meant they needed something to trade in return. Their greatest asset, perhaps their only asset, was their location and their growing skill with boats and sailing. The lagoon, which had seemed like such a desolate refuge, turned out to be a strategic gift. It provided a safe harbor, protected from storms by barrier islands and from enemies by the complex maze of shallow channels that only locals could navigate safely. And it sat at the head of the Adriatic Sea, perfectly positioned to serve as a gateway between the rich lands of northern Italy and the wider Mediterranean world. The Venetians became middlemen, the traders who connected different markets. They would sail down to the Dalmatian coast to buy timber, or to the salt flats of southern Italy to trade for that precious preservative. They would carry goods from the mainland, grain, wine, wool, and exchange them in Constantinople for luxury items from the East. They developed a reputation for reliability, for shrewdness, for always fulfilling their contracts. As you rest tonight, picture yourself in a Venetian merchant's warehouse in the year 900 or so. The building is right at the water's edge, with large doors that open directly onto a canal. Inside, the space is dim and cool, lit by sunlight filtering through small windows set high in the walls. The air is thick with the mingled scents of different goods: the sharp tang of salt, the earthy smell of wool, the sweetness of wine, the exotic perfume of Eastern spices. Your clerk sits at a table near the door, keeping careful records of everything that comes in and goes out. Literacy is essential in this business. You need to track inventories, maintain correspondence with trading partners in distant cities, keep accounts of debts and credits. Your children are being educated not just to read and write, but to calculate quickly, to assess the quality of goods with a glance, to negotiate effectively in multiple languages. You yourself have just returned from a voyage to Constantinople, that legendary city on the Bosporus. Your ship's hold is filled with treasures, bolts of silk, fabric in colors that don't exist in the West, small sealed jars of exotic spices, carefully wrapped icons painted by Byzantine masters, and a few pieces of delicate glasswork. These goods will be sold at a substantial profit to wealthy buyers in northern Italy and beyond. But you have also brought back something perhaps more valuable than any physical goods: information. In the markets and harbors of Constantinople, you heard news of political developments in the Muslim Caliphate, learned about crop failures in Egypt that might drive up grain prices, picked up rumors about new trade routes opening to the east. This information, carefully analyzed and acted upon, can be worth more than any cargo. Venice was becoming a republic of merchants, a state where commercial success was the highest virtue and where political power naturally flowed to those who had proven themselves in trade. The government itself was structured around this mercantile reality. The Doge, though elected for life, was not an absolute monarch, but more like a chief executive, bound by law and constantly monitored by councils of noblemen, who were themselves wealthy merchants. This unique political system evolved over centuries into something remarkably stable and sophisticated. The Great Council, composed of all noble families, was the ultimate authority. It elected members to smaller councils that handled different aspects of governance. The Doge himself became hemmed in by so many restrictions that he was sometimes jokingly called the most splendid slave in Christendom. He could not leave Venice without permission. His correspondence was read by state censors. His sons could not hold office during his reign. All these restrictions existed for one reason: to prevent any single individual from accumulating enough power to establish a hereditary monarchy. The Venetians had learned, through bitter observation of the mainland, that absolute rulers inevitably pursued war and glory at the expense of trade and prosperity. Their republican system, for all its complexity and occasional dysfunction, succeeded in keeping power dispersed and keeping the focus firmly on what mattered most: commerce. Let yourself drift now, imagining that you are floating on calm water, gently supported, moving without effort. The concerns of governance and trade fade into the background. All that remains is the gentle rocking motion, the soft sound of water lapping against wood, the warmth of sun on your closed eyelids. Rest comes easily here in this peaceful space. Chapter 3: The Golden Basilica and the Stolen Saint. By the 9th century, Venice had become wealthy and independent, but it still lacked something crucial: spiritual prestige. The city's patron saint was Theodore, a relatively minor Byzantine military martyr. This simply would not do for a city with growing ambitions. To be truly great, to stand as an equal to Rome or Constantinople, Venice needed a patron saint of the highest order, an apostle or evangelist. Venetian merchants, ever practical and opportunistic, decided to solve this problem in characteristically direct fashion. They would steal one. Their target was St. Mark the Evangelist, one of the 4 authors of the Gospels, whose remains lay in a shrine in Alexandria, Egypt. Alexandria at that time was under Muslim rule, which the Venetians calculated made the theft somewhat less sacrilegious. They were saving the holy relics from potential desecration. In the year 828, 2 Venetian merchants named Buono de Malamocco and Rustico de Torcello arrived in Alexandria on what appeared to be a routine trading mission. But they had a secret purpose. Through a combination of persuasion, bribery, and appeals to religious solidarity, they convinced the Christian guardians of St. Mark's shrine to let them take the saint's body back to Venice. Now came the dangerous part, smuggling a saint's corpse out of a Muslim-controlled port. Security at the docks was tight, with officials inspecting all cargo to prevent the export of anything valuable or forbidden. The two merchants needed a plan that would ensure their cargo went uninspected. Picture yourself as one of these merchants, standing in a warehouse near the Alexandria waterfront on a hot summer evening. Before you is a large wicker basket. Inside, wrapped in fine cloth, are the precious bones of St. Mark himself. You know that if you are caught, the consequences will be severe, imprisonment at minimum, possibly execution. Your partner has an idea that is either brilliant or blasphemous, depending on one's perspective. You layer the top of the basket with cuts of pork, meat that Muslims consider unclean and will not touch. Then you add cabbage leaves for good measure, creating a disgusting-looking cargo that no inspector would want to examine closely. The next morning, you carry the basket onto your ship, trying to appear casual despite your racing heart. The customs officials board to conduct their inspection. They walk through the hold, opening crates and examining goods. When they reach your basket and pull back the covering cloth, they recoil immediately at the sight of pork. "Kanzia, Kanzia," they exclaim, Arabic for pig, pig, and wave you through without further inspection. Your ship sails out of Alexandria harbor as the sun sets, painting the water gold and crimson. In the hold below, the body of St. Mark the Evangelist begins its final journey, from the land of its burial to the city that would make him its eternal symbol. When the merchants arrived in Venice with their holy prize, the entire city erupted in celebration. This was not just a religious coup, but a political and cultural statement of the highest magnitude. Venice now possessed the remains of one of Christ's own apostles, making it one of the most important pilgrimage sites in Christendom. The city's status was transformed overnight. A magnificent new church was commissioned to house St. Mark's remains, what would eventually become the breathtaking St. Mark's Basilica, with its 5 great domes and its interior covered in acres of golden mosaics. The basilica was not just a church, but the spiritual and political heart of the Republic, the Doge's own chapel, the site of state ceremonies and celebrations. With St. Mark came his symbol, the winged lion. This creature, representing the evangelist, was immediately adopted as Venice's own emblem. Soon, the Lion of St. Mark appeared everywhere on coins and flags, carved above doorways, painted on ship sails. Whenever Venice conquered a new territory, one of the first acts was to install a sculpture of the winged lion, usually holding a book inscribed with the words Pax Tibi Mars, Evangelista Muse, peace unto you, Mark, my evangelist. The theft of a saint's body was complete, and Venice had acquired not just holy relics, but a powerful symbol that would define the Republic for the next 1,000 years. As you rest tonight, imagine that winged lion watching over you, powerful yet peaceful, guarding your sleep as it once guarded an empire. Let your eyes remain closed, your breathing slow and steady. Feel yourself sinking deeper into comfort, into that space between waking and sleeping where stories become dreams and dreams become rest. Chapter 4: The Arsenal, where ships were born. Venice's power ultimately rested not on divine favor or political cunning, but on something far more concrete: ships. Lots of ships. Enough ships to control the Mediterranean, to fight wars on multiple fronts, to maintain trade routes across thousands of miles. And these ships were built in one of the most remarkable industrial complexes the medieval world had ever seen. the Venetian arsenal. Located in the eastern reaches of the city, behind high brick walls and guarded gates, the arsenal was part shipyard, part fortress, part factory. At its height, it covered nearly 50 acres and employed thousands of workers, the arsenalotti, who formed a hereditary class of skilled craftsmen loyal to the state. What made the arsenal revolutionary was its organization. In an age when most ships were built one at a time, from start to finish, by a single team of craftsmen, the Venetians pioneered something that would not be fully developed elsewhere for centuries: the assembly line. Imagine yourself standing at the entrance to the arsenal on a misty morning in the year 1500. You have received special permission to tour this facility. It is normally closed to outsiders, as the techniques used here are state secrets of the highest order. A guide, one of the senior masters of the arsenal, meets you at the gate. As you pass through the entrance, you are struck immediately by the scale. Before you stretches a vast complex of workshops, warehouses, and covered construction bays. Canals run through the complex, allowing ships to be moved from one station to another. The sound is overwhelming: hammering, sawing, the creak of ropes and pulleys, the shouts of workers calling to each other. Your guide explains the system. The arsenal is organized around standardization and specialization, instead of building each ship uniquely from scratch. They maintain warehouses filled with prefabricated, standardized components. Thousands of identical oars, pre-cut timbers for hulls, masts of specific lengths, coils of rope in standard thicknesses, sails cut to uniform dimensions. When a new ship is ordered, a bare hull is constructed in one of the bays and then floated into a long canal that runs through the heart of the complex. The hull begins what amounts to an aquatic assembly line. At the first station, one specialized team installs the rowing benches. The ship is then towed to the next station, where another team steps the mast and attaches the rigging. At the next stop, the rudder is fitted. Then comes the sail. Then provisions are loaded: water casks, biscuit barrels, salted meat. At the final stations, the ship receives its weapons. First come crossbows, stored by the hundreds, each with a supply of bolts. Later, as technology advances, these will be replaced by cannons, bronze guns cast in the arsenal's own foundries, each one proof-fired to ensure it won't explode when used in battle. The efficiency is staggering. Your guide tells you that in emergencies, the arsenal has produced a fully equipped war galley in a single day. During a famous state visit, a foreign dignitary was invited to dine at the arsenal. When he entered, a bare hull was just being floated into the construction canal. By the time he had finished his meal, a fully armed and provisioned warship emerged from the other end of the facility, ready to sail. This industrial might gave Venice an enormous strategic advantage. When war threatened, the Republic could mobilize a fleet with shocking speed, overwhelming enemies before they could fully prepare. The arsenal was the beating heart of Venetian power, the factory that turned lumber and iron and rope into naval supremacy. The arsenalotti who worked here enjoyed special privileges. They had guaranteed employment for life, pensions for themselves and their widows, housing provided by the state. In return, they were absolutely loyal and absolutely secretive. Revealing the techniques of the arsenal to outsiders was considered treason, punishable by death. As you lie in your bed tonight, imagine the rhythmic sounds of the arsenal, the steady hammering of carpenters, the rasp of saws through timber, the the splash of a hull entering water. These sounds are not harsh or jarring, but somehow soothing in their purposefulness, their steady rhythm. Let them become the background of your rest, a distant industrial lullaby from a vanished age. Your breathing matches the rhythm now, in and out, steady and sure, like the tide flowing through those construction canals, carrying ships from raw timber to finished vessel, carrying you from wakefulness to sleep. Chapter 5: The Marriage to the Sea. Every year on Ascension Day in late spring, Venice celebrated its most important ceremony, the Sposalizio del Mar, the marriage to the sea. This was not merely a religious festival, but a statement of political reality, a public affirmation of the relationship that defined the Republic's very existence. The ceremony centered around the Doge's state barge, the Bucentoro, a vessel so magnificent that it seemed more like a floating palace than a boat. Imagine a ship over 100 feet long, propelled by 42 oars, its entire surface covered in elaborate carvings and gilded with pure gold leaf. When the sun struck the Bucentoro, it blazed like a golden flame on the water. Picture yourself as a citizen of Venice on Ascension Day in the year 1550. You wake early, dress in your finest clothes, and join thousands of other Venetians making their way toward St. Mark's Basin. The day is clear and beautiful, the water calm, reflecting the cloudless blue sky above. The entire city seems to have declared a holiday. Shops are closed, work is suspended, everyone is focused on the great ceremony. By mid-morning, you have found a good viewing spot near the waterfront. You can see the Bucentoro being prepared at its special dock. The Doge emerges from the palace, dressed in his ceremonial robes of crimson and gold, wearing the distinctive ducal cap, the corno ducal, that resembles a strange, backwards-pointing horn. He is surrounded by the highest officials of the state, senators in their scarlet robes, foreign ambassadors, prominent citizens. The Doge boards the Bucentoro, and slowly, majestically, the great golden ship begins to move. The oarsmen row in perfect synchronization, their movements practiced and precise. Behind the state barge follows a flotilla of hundreds of smaller vessels, gondolas decorated with flowers and silk banners, private boats filled with spectators, merchant vessels flying their owners' colors. It is the entire city afloat, a procession of such splendor that you feel your eyes filling with tears at the beauty of it. The fleet makes its way out through the lagoon, past the islands where monasteries and churches rise from the water, past the shipyards and warehouses, heading toward the Lido, the barrier island that separates the calm waters of the lagoon from the open Adriatic Sea. At the Lido Inlet, where lagoon meets sea, the fleet halts. A profound silence falls over the thousands of assembled spectators. The Doge rises from his throne on the Bucentoro. In his hand, he holds a golden ring, specially consecrated by the Patriarch of Venice. The ring gleams in the sunlight, catching and reflecting the sparkle of the water around it. In a voice that carries across the water, amplified by the perfect acoustics of calm air and flat sea, the Doge recites the ancient formula, Dispensamus te me insignum veri perpetuique dominii. We wed thee, O sea, in token of true and perpetual dominion. And with those words, he casts the golden ring into the water. It arcs through the air, flashes once in the sunlight, and disappears into the blue depths with a small splash. The sea has accepted Venice's marriage proposal for another year. Immediately, the silence breaks. Church bells ring from every campanile in the city. Musicians on the boats begin to play. People cheer and throw flowers into the water. The ceremony is complete and the celebration begins. The fleet returns to the city, where feasting and festivities will continue late into the night. This ceremony was not mere pageantry. It was a profound statement of Venice's relationship with the element that sustained it. The sea was everything to Venice: highway, fortress, farm, and destiny. To be married to the sea was to acknowledge this fundamental truth. Venice and the waters were one, inseparable, bound together in a union that could only be broken by death. As you rest tonight, imagine yourself floating on those calm waters, supported completely, rising and falling gently with the breath of the sea. You are safe here, cradled in the embrace of something larger than yourself, something eternal and enduring. Let yourself drift now. Like that golden ring sinking slowly through clear water, down into the depths of peaceful sleep. Chapter 6: The Spice Merchant's Golden Trade. The true foundation of Venetian wealth was neither divine favor nor naval power, but something more prosaic and more precious: spices. To understand Venice's empire, you must understand the extraordinary value that medieval and Renaissance Europeans placed on these aromatic substances from the distant East. Spices were not merely flavorings. They were preservatives that could keep meat edible through long winters. They were essential ingredients in medicines believed to cure everything from plague to melancholy. They were status symbols, ostentatious displays of wealth. A merchant who could afford to season his food liberally with pepper and cinnamon was declaring his prosperity to the world. Most importantly, spices were rare. They came from specific regions in South and Southeast Asia, the Spice Islands that would later draw European explorers around the globe. The journey from their source to European markets was long, dangerous, and expensive, passing through many intermediaries, each of whom took their profit. A pound of pepper that cost a few coins in Indonesia might be worth its weight in silver by the time it reached London or Paris. Venice positioned itself as the essential middleman in this trade, the gateway through which Eastern goods entered Western markets. The spices traveled by ship and caravan from Asia to the great Muslim trading centers of Alexandria in Egypt and Aleppo in Syria. And there, waiting in these ports, were Venetian merchants. Imagine yourself as one of these merchants, standing in the bustling market of Alexandria on a hot summer morning. The air is thick with exotic scents: cinnamon and cloves, frankincense and myrrh, pepper and ginger, saffron and cardamom. Around you, merchants from a dozen different cultures conduct business in a babel of languages: Arabic, Greek, Italian, Persian, Armenian. You are inspecting a shipment of pepper that has just arrived from India, transporting across the ocean sweet dreams.